All right, in this tutorial, I am going to show you how to take this image, which was AI generated. I do have a free pick account, and then I'm going to use some AI and then some Rive to animate him a little bit for just a little music video. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and download this guy. You can see that he's downloading there. Da-da-da. It's a JPEG. Everything is kind of squished together. So the next thing that you want to do is you want to come to Adobe Photoshop Beta. Let's do a new file. You can see that I've already kind of played around with this just a little bit. But let's just go ahead and do a new file instead of opening. We're going to do a custom 1920 by 1080 because it's going to be in that 16 by 9 format. So let's go ahead and click on that, and then we'll hit create. So once we're in there, we want to import an image. So that will be this one right here. Wait for a second, and you can see there he is. So I'm going to scoot him all the way over to the left. We'll hit done, and you can see that he's good to go. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to select the subject. You can see that it is really stinking close. And so all the way up here at the very, very top, I want to do select and mask. And yeah. Select subject again. Actually, if you do this little drop down and you do detail results, which is the cloud, so much better. So let's go ahead and hit continue, and let's see what this thing does. Right on. So it did something. So what we want to do is we want to show the original. I see what it's doing. Let's do transparency. Let's bring this transparency up so we can kind of see the differences. You can see that I got a little bit more than what I want. So let's just kind of zoom in using the right stuff here. Using my option or my alt key, I can actually refine some of this a little bit, and I can remove sections that I don't want it to mask. We can reduce this size just a little bit. There we go. Just make sure that we've got every piece and part. Doesn't have to be perfect, and I'll show you why in just a minute, but it looks like the rest is actually pretty good. Let's get rid of this little area right here. Good. Got it. Now, the important thing. Output 2 down here in the bottom right-hand corner. We want to do this with a new layer. So we want to output this to a new layer. We can do with layer mask if we want, or we can just do new layer. Let's try new layer. And we're going to hit OK. And now that it's come back, you can see that it has put in our white background, which is what we started with. And then we also have this background as well. So let's back out just a little bit and move this guy over. But you can see that this background is good. Let's remove this top piece, which is just an additional piece. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to select the subject again. So let's go here, select subject. You can see that he is in the picture here, which is fine. Just go ahead and hit delete. And sure. It will not let me delete it. It's always good when things work exactly as you want them. Let's rasterize the layer. So now I can delete it. With this selected underneath the select, I want to expand this or I believe it's grow. Nope, that's not what it was. But I want to expand this. Somehow. Right there. Expand. There we go. By 10 pixels is fine. You can see that it comes out just a little bit. Expanding it will help us generate a new background. So we're going to just hit this generative fill and then just hit the generate button. We'll wait for a second. It should redo everything for us and should be pretty close. There we go. Now we have this whole entire thing without Lofi. The next thing we want to do is fill in this white area. So I'm going to use my selection tool, and we're just going to go ahead and select this, including some of the original picture. And then we're going to hit generative fill and then generate again. And now we have a beautiful background. This was all done with AI. Let's remove this real quick. And so basically what we want to do is we want to export two different copies of this. So the first copy is, and I'm sure that there's an easier way to do this, but we're going to do a quick export as a PNG. And this is going to be our Lofi background. And then we're going to turn off all the layers except for Lofi here. And we're going to do another quick export as a PNG as Lofi. And now we have all of our assets. Pretty cool, right? Now we are done in Photoshop. You can see what each one of these layers brings to the entire project. Kind of cool. So now let's go into Rive. You can see that I've already done this. Maybe you've already seen the video. But what we're going to do in Rive is we're going to animate Lofi. And it's really easy. So we're going to hit this plus button. We're going to change our size to 1920 by 1080. So again, it's that 16 by 9 format. We are now going to take this, go into assets, and now we can add our two images. So we've got Lofi, which I misspelled, and the background and the regular one, which is fine. This is just demonstration purposes, right? And so once we're done, these will process, analyze, do their thing. Now we can take this background, we can throw it into place. Our alignment tools, we can center this up, and then we're good. We can actually lock this background so that we don't move it again. There's no reason to move it. Let's go back over to our assets. Let's get our Lofi picture. Let's pull him into place. Looks like he's a little bit bigger than I expected, which is fine. But we can put him into place as simply as this. And now he's setting in place. So here we are. We have now recreated this picture, but we want to animate this character. So to do that, we're going to create a mesh, and then this is where it gets kind of fun. So we want to click on new contour, and it's going to be as simple as taking this this little tool here, which is a pen tool, and kind of tracing around him. Actually, what we'll do is we will get rid of the background, and then actually under artboard, nope, that's fine. I think we can make this, maybe we can't. All right, so under new artboard, we can make this a different color. which won't make any difference at all. So let's make that white so we can kind of see what we're defining. And this doesn't make a difference in our end result because everything is going to be covered up by this guy, right? So good. Let's click on Lofi again. Let's click on Edit Mesh because we started that. We're going to do New Contour. We're going to just kind of zoom in a little bit, but not too far. We can go in between, and maybe I should have made this just a little bit different of a color, but we're going to go in between holding the space bar and moving this around. And clicking. So we can actually just do this, and you'll see that this is quick and easy. And I'm going to stop talking for a minute so that I can speed through this boring part, but basically all I'm doing is following each outline here, and this only takes a couple minutes. It seems like it'll take forever, but it really doesn't, and you can just be as detailed as you want. It doesn't have to be super detailed. So I will do this and I will be right back. You can see I hit the space bar there and it doesn't interrupt my clicking. All right, and then once we're done, we're just going to click on that first point, right like that. You can see that it has created this mesh in here, and then I can click on Done Editing in that top right-hand corner. So let's go ahead and back out of this a little bit. And then the next thing that we want to do with this mesh right here, and you can see how this mesh kind of comes across in different places. You can add more points to this. You can make it a whole lot more of a detailed mesh if you want to, but there's only a couple things that we're going to animate in this whole ordeal. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to come up to this bones. Bones is something that's included in Rive, so we can click on bones. The first thing that we want to animate is this leg, and so the first thing that I do is I click right here at the beginning of the leg. I come down to the ankle area and then out to the edge of the foot, and then we're good. I'm going to hit the escape key just to get out of that. If I hit the B key again, I now have another bone that I can put into place. I also want to make the edge of his coat kind of flap in the wind, so let's put two bones right here. Kind of nice, right? Hit the escape key. And then the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make his head kind of come back and forth. And so I'm just going to put one bone right here that comes up to about the middle of his head, and then hit the escape key. Sure, we could do a whole lot more, but this is kind of where we're going to be. So then the next thing that I want to do is I want to click on this mesh, and then I want to bind bones. So I want to make sure that these bones are attached to this mesh. So the first thing that we do is we come down over here to bind bones, and simply use your shift key, click on the bones that you want to bind to this mesh, which are all of them, because it is just the one mesh, and then hit done. So if you had several in there, you could bind these bones to several different meshes or several different pieces of work. Now, if we click on one of these bones and we decide to move it, you can see that it's not really doing anything at all. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to click on this mesh again, and then we want to hit Edit Mesh. Yes, we've been here before. So when we click on, actually what we want to do is we want to highlight each one of these points. Let's come down to this leg or this foot area. So it's going to be one of the easier places to show you. Let's go crazy with the zoom because that's very effective. So you can see that I've got several different points in here. We can select these different points, and so we definitely want all of these. And then we also want we want this one to stay. Holding the shift key, I do want these 3. And I want all of these to move with this yellow bone. Now there's a couple different ways that you can do this. You can go based off of colors. Sometimes the colors are really, really close together. So you can rename these bones if that happens to you. We're not going to rename them today, but let's find this yellow bone here, which is bone 1. And we're going to take this and we're going to just make this 100%. These next ones in this area, so get out of there, back out of here just a little bit. So for this bone here, I want it to affect everything from the cuff of his leg down. Actually, I can even include the cuff of his leg or pants. So let's go ahead and select all of these. Now remember that we've already selected some of these guys, and then holding the shift key you can actually individually click on each one of these as well. We want all of these to be part of this blue bone, which they are. Look at that, that's one of the first bones that we put into place, so we're good. Let's just double check this point right here. I can't remember what I did. Yeah, that's good to be part of that, and this one's part of the yellow. Good. We're going to go ahead and do that for the rest of these. So for this green one, we want it to affect everything back here, including this little guy, and that's for this green one. So let's type in 100 here. That's going to make the weight of that bone attached there. This next one, I want these, not that guy up there. Let's get these here. Good. And then these two. That's good. And that's going to be for the purple. So let's click on the purple, make that 100. We're moving right along. This one we want to be able to rotate kind of back and forth. And I kind of want it to rotate from actually above this point. So like these points here, all the ones in his hat and his hair. And you can see that we can just select a whole bunch of them if we want. Let's bring the hand in kind of with us. So as his head goes back, we want it to pull his hand up a little bit. So let's get all of these, including that little guy, and then everything at the top of his hat. And if we miss one of these, we're going to notice really quick. So all these are going to be for this pinkish one. Maybe that's magenta. And so good, we're there. Now we can hit done editing and we can kind of test this out, right? So if we click on this bone right here and we move it back and forth, you can see that it moves it back and forth. Now notice that his hand comes up a little bit, so we don't want it to move a whole lot, but there's really not much else that we can do there. So one of the other things that we can do with these is we can actually stretch them in and out. So we can manipulate these things any way we want, which is kind of fun. So this leg here, we want, because these two legs are together, and actually see how these are all going with this one leg. May not be a super bad problem, but this is the root bone. So as I'm moving that, everything's moving. I'll show you how to fix that really quick. But then your foot down here, if we want him to tap his foot, we can definitely do that. So he can tap his foot. And then also the waving of his little feathers. I want to say feathers. They're not feathers. The end of his coat here, we can actually rotate that a little bit too, just to add a little bit of movement. Let's go back in. Let's edit this mesh really quick. And basically what we can do is, let's just highlight all the ones that we don't want to move, which are all of these, here, these guys here, right, all the way up here, that guy, and then these right here for sure. Right. And we can tell when we click on these, once we go too far, one of these things will, or maybe not. It actually won't. So basically I want all of these just to kind of stay where they are. So I'm going to just click on this root bone and I'm going to hit 0. Actually, it won't let me hit 0. It won't let me do it. So let's back out of that. All right, so we just won't move that. One thing that you could do is you could add another bone in here, and then you can manipulate the entire body with this bone here. So this bone can now be bound to, if I can find him, there he is. Actually click on the mesh, click on bind bones, click on this bone here, click on done, and then now, let's see if I messed it up. Probably did. Is that the only bone that's bound? Yep. It is. So basically we want all the bones to be bound. That's okay. We're not going to move this guy at all. So we're good. So the next thing that you want to do is turn back on your background layer, and then you want to animate this just ever so slightly. Let's go over to the animate tab. We'll make our display screen just a little bit smaller. And then we're going to head down to our timeline. And then basically what we're going to do is we're going to start with the foot. Right now we've got everything set to a minute. A second. We can make this 4 seconds long if we want, and then we can definitely loop this just for our benefit. And so basically at the beginning of this timeline, we want to grab this this foot bone, this yellow one, and yeah, once I click on it, there we go. What we can do is we can, once we move it a little bit, you can see that a keyframe is put into place. We'll go 30 frames ahead, and then we will lift this thing up to where it looks decent. We can actually have it come out just a little bit. Go back. I think that looks fine. We can now copy and paste this. And there we go. Now we have this animation put into place. We're going to set our interpolation, and then we can actually pull this out using that Alt or Option key. Let's double this in length just to make it a little bit slower. There we go. And then what we can do is we can have his head bob here. So let's grab this guy. There we go. And then we're going to go about halfway through, make it go up just a little bit further. And then we can copy that keyframe and then add it into here. We'll change that interpolation to cubic, or from cubic to, you can see that he kind of goes back and forth. You can play around with some of the timing here, make it feel a little bit more natural. This is just to show you how easily it's done. Now let's get the little wave of his tailcoat here. So let's bring this down. And then as we go up, let's click on the next bone. Here we go. We'll make this go down. And then, so as it is going up, we can go, let's do this the right way. It's pretty aggressive, but what we're going to do is we're going to have it go up like so, and then it's going to go back down, maybe to right about there. Let's grab this bottom bone, we'll bring it down, and then this end bone, we're going to let it go all the way out. And then right about here, we're going to let it come down into place. And so now you can see that it starts and it kind of flops, right? And we can make that a whole bunch better if we spent some time on it. But as you can tell, that is, let's change this to work area so that we can just loop this segment here like so. And of course we can kind of move this a little bit better. We can change the interpolation a little bit. Maybe yeah, as you can tell, you can kind of play around with this a little bit, make it a whole bunch better. But this is kind of nice and quick and easy. From here, since we've only done a timeline, one thing that Rive allows us to do is add this to the cloud renderer, which is kind of nice. From here, you've got a couple different options depending on what you want to do. You can do a PNG sequence, you can do an H.264, which is what we're going to do, or you can do a GIF. So we'll do the H.264, and then we can hit start, and this is going to do a little cloud render, and then we can put it into Premiere and make our video from it with whatever music we want to make it with. And that is about it. Comment below. Let me know if this was helpful for you. Make sure that you subscribe and all of that fun stuff. Once this is done, it will pop up a button here to download. Yeah, let me know if you want to see more of this content. With that, I will see you next time.